Hello everybody. Comms professionals, especially those of you in the PR and advocacy space, I'm sure you will agree that the media houses, the editors, the journalists, they are a key stakeholder for all of us. At the same time, organizations, the leaders, the spokespersons in an organization, they are an equally important stakeholder for media houses, being the source of information, being the source of views, of thought, or even for simply brainstorming on ideas on subjects to get a balanced perspective. So while the journalists know best what their readers want, the comms person is one of the conduits for relevant content. How can these two, the media persons and the comms professionals, connect and complement each other? What are the evolving expectations from each other? To discuss this, joining me is Mr. AK Bhattacharya, Editorial Director of Business Standard. We all know him well. He is an institution himself, a newsperson to the core with over 4 decades of journalism experience. He is the author of 2 books, The Rise of Goliath, 12 Disruptions That Changed India, and India's Finance Ministers from Independence to Emergency, 1947 to 1977. Frankly, anything I say about him is less. He is someone we all have always looked up to. He's a teacher at heart. Thank you very much for joining me today, Mr. Bhattacharya. And my other guest today is a respected name from the communications fraternity, Amit Misra. Amit is CEO of MSL South Asia and Southeast Asia and has helmed MSL for almost a decade. Widely acknowledged as a natural leader, Amit brings with him extensive consulting experience apart from in-house roles. He started his career with SR Cellphone, now Hutch, in the marketing communications function. And on his Twitter handle, Amit calls out his affinity for 4 C's: culture, curiosity, communications and cricket. And today, we will pick up one of these C's for a candid conversation. Thank you, Mr. Bhattacharya, Amit, for joining me today. Mr. Bhattacharya, you have worked with many comms professionals, the seasoned, the raring to go, the aspiring. What has been your association? What stood out for you?
Well, it's been a long journey. Thanks for reminding me I am an old man. I think it has been broadly a very satisfying journey. And at the same time, it has been very instructive. What I have learned from my interaction, engagement with the communication professionals over these years is that there is something called the core needs of the 2 professions. And I think where the recognition of what those core needs are is clear, set out very transparently and openly between the 2 agents and the 2 participants, I think it has been a wonderful journey of discovery, understanding for a larger goal, which is a communication of any issue. So I have great regard for the communication professional, just as I have great regard for the journalist profession, because I do believe they are in the same field with different goals in mind. And as I said, as long as there is this clear recognition of those 2 goals, I think the journey can be very, 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 very fruitful, rewarding, and ultimately helping in achieving the goals of communication.
Very true, very true. And Amit, you have been a seasoned professional yourself, a communication professional. What are your thoughts on the relationship with media persons and comms persons?
Well, I think just building on the points that AK sir raised, I think there are 2 aspects. One is just authenticity, right? Information that we need to exchange authentically and in time. And second is just a healthy respect for each other's. There are certain, while there is a certain role that we have to play, there is a certain role that the media has to play, there is still congruence at the end of the day, right? And I think as long as we are authentically representing our clients in a way that is acceptable and meaningful in helping our colleagues, our friends in the media do their job, I think there is a very healthy relationship that can be forged. At the end of the day, there isn't any malicious agenda that we represent. All we represent is an ability to tell stories in partnership with our friends from media in the most engaging way possible. for the end reader, for the end viewer, right? So we continue on that journey. It's a journey.
So you mentioned that there are challenges at times. How can they be streamlined? How can it be seamless working between comms people and media persons?
So when I say challenges, there will be some friction because that is inevitable. But it has to be, you still have to keep the guardrails where there is, mutual respect, healthy understanding of each other's roles, and also all the smaller nuances. What time to approach?
Yeah.
What time to engage? What are your boundaries with which you can engage, right? A lot of times, some people get this expectation that we are here to change headlines. We are not.
Yeah.
We are here to help the media understand better our client's perspective and represent them in the best possible way that they feel fits the narrative, because that's completely the media's prerogative.
Yeah.
And we respect that and we keep clear of that boundary. So our job is actually as intermediaries, but authentic intermediaries was giving enough time for absorption, understand also the news cycle, what is to be done when, so that when you're approaching them, they are also open to engagement. Other challenge that we have seen, and that's a transition as opposed to some of the very established publications, some of the newer publications are always short-staffed.
Mm-hmm.
So we see a lot of journalists doing not just double hatting, triple hatting, multiple hatting, right? So their jobs have become tougher. What can we do to ease it, to become genuine partners is a constant question. And I think embracing technology and seeing which technology works the best is again, something that we should very strongly look at.
Yeah, Mr. Bhattacharya, your suggestions on...
Well, I have three quick points to make in this regard. As I said earlier, that both the communication professional and the media professional are in the business of communication. So there is a commonality there. But at the same time, I would say that there is a variety there, in the sense that at some point the convergence can become a stage of divergence. And I think that's very important to recognize, that the professional, media professional is working for a specific purpose. Communication professional is working for a specific purpose. Now, as long as this is recognized, and unfortunately what happens is the problem arises, the problems to which Mr. Misra alluded, is when that recognition is not complete and transparently acknowledged. That's number one, and I think that we need to address that issue.
Yeah, I agree.
Number two, I would say that there is tremendous need for a relationship of trust and understanding between both the professions, and the trust quotient gets better when you have the media professional being helped by the communication professional, not just by giving what is to be put out through a press release or a news item, but also through what I call knowledge enhancement. As a communication professional, you are privy to sets of knowledge bases, databases, which probably can enhance the media professional in many ways, and I think that is very important. And my final point on this issue would be that just as media professional wants communication, wants information, access to information, I think the communication professional must realize that it cannot be a wall, but it has to be a passage. What we have seen, particularly in the post-COVID world, where access not just to the corporates, but to all agencies which dispense information, including the government, where the syndrome of the wall is gradually substituting what I call the much needed passage.
Yeah.
And I think the communication professional can be a great help
In
and
that,
great
yeah.
aid to the job of a media professional in creating that passage instead of being a wall, where the information dissemination, analysis, interpretation is possible, and it can enhance the understanding of different stakeholders, including the readers.
Yeah.
So I think these are the 3 quick points I would say is much needed in today's context.
I remember the media workshops that you had
Yes.
suggested to us and
Yeah,
we used to do
yeah,
for
yeah,
Business
yeah.
Standard,
Very true.
which then just continued over the years, and we found that
absolutely.
people appreciated
Well,
it
greater
so much.
understanding, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, I mean, I always remember where a communication professional comes to me when I was a reporter, and you normally expect when a communication professional comes to you and meets you in your desk that the communication professional will say, here is this press release. Now, in one of those instances in my life, not just once, several times it has happened, the communication professional comes and says, hey, here is this, you know, a document for you, not a classified document. This is about a certain company that I deal with. Nothing to write about it, just for your understanding. Now, that day, that relationship of trust, understanding that it is enhancing my knowledge,
Totally.
and it is not a transactional relationship anymore. And I think that is very, very important. And particularly in a post-COVID world where communication is not happening in a physical mode, but rather through a digital mode.
Yeah, yeah. But would there be situations that come to your mind where a comms person could have riled a media person also?
Yes. You know, as I said, the root cause is lack of understanding, mutual understanding of what is needed by each of the professionals, you know. Let me admit, and I know I will not be liked by my media colleagues, that within the media there is this hierarchical belief that a media professional is probably is at a higher pedestal than the communication professional.
Okay.
Now, I think this is something which is prevalent in all societies, not just in a developing society like ours. And I don't think it's a good thing to have. This needs to be changed. And just as the media professionals are guilty for this very, very unequal relationship, I think the communication professional should also take a little bit of the blame for having developed this and sustained this relationship. Now, what happens is that, therefore, over a period of time, some communication professionals, and it has happened with me, will believe that probably, you know, material benefit to the person will help, whether it is in the form of a gift. So it has often happened to me that, you know, after doing a very fine job, which I thought I did a professional job, I was offered a bottle of liquor. So it has happened with me. So which I had to turn down. And I'm sure there would be many other instances where a communication professional will be able to recount where how a media professional behaved completely unprofessionally and in an uncouth manner. So, but I think it happens because lack of understanding of what each of the professions they're actually trying to rule. I have one more point which I would like to say here is that there is this increasing gap between what I call a corporate goal and what I call the profession's goal. Now, what happens in the media is that the media professional, you know, when I go out and talk to people, I introduce myself, I'm from Business Standard. I don't say I'm from Business Standard Private Limited. For me, the company is less important than what I am. I am from Business Standard. So the brand is larger than the company.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now, the communication professional, it is just the opposite. It is that the communication professional comes and says, here is a company, which I want to talk about. Unfortunately, I've seen in my own the last few years that this goal of the communication professional is probably in conflict with the corporate goals. An instance that comes to my mind is very interesting incident. I would not like to name the company, but a very important global CEO wanted to give an interview, but the corporate communication team did not want that interview. So when that interview during the meeting, when the interview happened, so the media persons asked that, can we have your interview in this manner? So the CEO said, yeah, by all means, go ahead. So it happened. So the communication professionals did not have, I would say, the courage to say no to the CEO at that point in time. Then you go out and then the corporate communication people request you, yes, sorry, please
not to do it.
Don't do it. Now that's where the corporate goal and the professional goal don't tally. Now I think that happens because there is lack of understanding what you are doing, what you are not doing. Maybe a specific case. Something similar may have happened to the media company also. I'm not saying that the media is a lily white saint. But I think this is what can cause a lot of problems and misunderstandings between the media and the communication. And I think as senior representatives of the media and Mr. Misra, I think we need to take that step to address these concerns of the younger professionals.
Sensitize them on some of these things. Anything which comes to your mind?
No, I think some aspects which have just been raised by AKB sir need some serious thinking from us. One, I think just the time it takes to build a relationship is not available, or at least perceived to be not available. So you don't have to necessarily go out, for a meal or a drink to build a relationship. I really believe knowledge is at the center of it. And if you can come across as being knowledgeable about the industry or a domain, that represents the client. I think you have some acceptance, some license to at least engage meaningfully. I think for me, the biggest challenge will continue to be to look at how as professionals we can, I wouldn't say get into that zone of, one is entitled, one is not entitled. I think we know we have a job to do, we are professionals. It doesn't matter big or small, it's an important job. Their job is of course extremely important. We have to just come together and make, continuously equip each other. Is the way I would see it. I think the one part that comes to my mind is that each publication, each media house, you can't, completely look at them in, let's say with one prism. Everybody has their own nuances, right? And some of them they set them bar very high for ethical standards.
No, I think both of you have raised this point about trust.
I have two pieces of suggestions to make, if you allow me.
Sure.
One is for both the professions, which is, I think, transparency and trust building is at the heart of the issue. And one piece of advice to the media, which is that own up your mistakes. The media must learn to own up its mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. So media must also learn to have, to own up mistakes and have a proper correction policy. And I don't think all media houses in this country have that policy, and it's very important for media to do that. And the second thing I would say is, which is relevant for the communication professionals must make sure that their corporate headquarters for whom they are working, let us say whether it is a communication professional who is an independent outfit or whether it is a part of a corporate unit, must make sure that the corporate leadership and the communication professional, their goals and what they are doing must be completely aligned. I will give you one example. In my early years when I was in Calcutta, and it is an example, since it is so many years ago, I will give you the name of the company. It is Coal India Limited. It's a public sector company. There was a former railway board chairman, a man called MS Gujral, who had just taken over as the chairman of Coal India Limited. He came in, and the first decision that he took as he entered the room, his room, which was on the ground floor, and he said that, where is my communication guy? In 1982. And it was told to him that he sits on the 5th floor. So he came out of his room and then looked around for a place, and there was a room there, and said, I want my communication man to sit in this room. So that was the first decision MS Gujral took. Now why? Because he realized that as the CIL chairman, his public relations officer must be in tune with him
Absolutely.
all the time. I think that's very, very important, and communication professionals must press for this alignment of goals and understanding of what is happening in the company.
Totally.
But then also, that's very interesting because I always believe that what we do as larger reputation custodians is represent the CEO. And in a lot of organizations where I think the CMO gets involved, it compromises the function. I feel the best organizations, just like what Mr. Bhattacharya has mentioned, vis-a-vis Mr. Kujral, are people, are CEOs or leaders who take responsibility for the reputation of the firm. So it is so crucial that the CEO and the CCO are aligned at the hip. And that also creates so many more opportunities for informing the stakeholders in a meaningful way. So I think yes, completely. Working with a CMO in some organizations definitely compromises our ability to communicate better. Yeah.
No, working with CMO as in the media persons going directly to the CMO?
No, let's say instead of the communications function rolling directly to the CEO,
Okay.
if it is a level below
Okay.
and it is routed via the CMO,
Yeah.
I believe that it gets compromised. And multiple, and I can go into many cases, but also it shows a lot when a leader takes full responsibility for reputation, which is what communications eventually enables. Right?
Totally. Couldn't agree more with you. I mean, reputation, the most important thing, and it's to flow right from the top. And if you're not aligned with them, then how do you go about it?
Yeah. The best leaders, I believe, are also chief reputation officers by default of their organization. Yeah.
In fact, the trust transparency which you picked, and just a small piece, if I look at what we do over here, you spoke of 24 hours. I used to tell my team that if you have a request from media, within 1 hour you need to go back and let them know, will somebody from PwC be responding or not? So that they're not just waiting for you, and that is what has builds a trust. Because you're enabling them, they have a timeline, they have to file a story. I mean, while you may have 24 hours, there are many others who probably do it much faster. At least they need to know whether to depend on you or not to depend on you. But tell me another thing, Amit, a lot of journalists we hear now are joining PR agencies.
Well, I like to think of PR agencies more as PR firms. Agent word doesn't fit well.
Okay, PR firms.
It's stuck, but we're having a conversation, so I'm just putting in my little point here. And why not?
Yeah.
I think they are excellent communicators, whether in written format or even if you're looking at people who are coming now from the digital publishing world or from television. They're fitting in. Not all do. I think the earlier in your career that you make a switch, the chances of success are that much greater, because operationally there is a very different mindset, right? So if you come onto our side of the coin or our side of the table, you will see that we're always short on time, right? Because there are multiple responsibilities, multiple tasking is, a given. You have to juggle multiple balls. So speed becomes of essence, and yet without compromising on either quality or any of the deliverables that we're responsible to our clients. So I think anybody who has that ability to make that switch, and yes, some media, friends in the media who have tried to make the switch, but haven't been able to switch mentally to our world, which is fast, nimble, agile, have kind of struggled, and they've actually gone back. That's fine. Sometimes there are people who enjoy just reading and writing at a certain pace, which is fine. In that case, maybe being a columnist may be better for them than being with us.
But a regular reporter would also be fast, nimble, agile. They have to file the
No,
story
that's
in the
fine.
evening.
But then there are enough number of such examples who have done very well. So what I'm saying is, yes, we are very open, because eventually it's about talent. It doesn't matter where it comes from. If you're talented, you're hardworking, you're passionate, we want you. So we would, we would open doors. But the mindset part is the only stumbling block, because technical skills, I think they are pretty much there. But if the mindset isn't to be able to be open, because what is the biggest privilege of a comms professional is you're at the heart of everything that's happening. And at least for me, that's a huge motivator. What gets me kicking is I know that there are 3 brands launching something that can change the world in the next 6 months. To work on that, I'm not saying all brands, depending on different domains and different life cycles they may enjoy, maybe doing such exciting work. But even that 2 or 3 brands who are doing it just gives me huge joy. And then I say, okay, it's a responsibility. We're communicating something which is, wow, going to work in a unprecedented manner. And it never changes. So there's never a dull day, I think. But that's true for news.
Yeah.
Well, let me add a bit point on this, that the sign of any profession's maturity is its ability to absorb people with the requisite skills. Where you come from is not really material. And I'm happy to tell you that there are media organizations, including mine, which have taken as journalists people from the communication stream. So it's not just, as you said, it's not a one-way street. It's becoming a two-way street. It was not so earlier that a journalist would think the end of his life if he were to join a communication profession, and a communication professional will never be entertained in the media world as a reporter or a sub-editor. But I think things have changed, and the professional skills are more important, and that is what they are being judged on. So, which is a good thing, as long as you are focused on what your skills are, you should not carry any baggage, or there should be no legacy issue on this.
So both of you have spoken of talent. You in fact added that tomorrow, and you are seeing even today, that talent could be moving to journalism. So if talent is at the core, what are your suggestions on making this talent fit for future, whether it's joining comms or journalism?
I think the most important attribute that I would say is necessary for the media, about which I can say confidently, is that it's a post-COVID world. Information consumption and information dissemination has acquired a face and dimension which do not contribute to a holistic understanding of issues around you. What has happened in this post-COVID, highly digitized world, information does not come to you as you need to know, but as it is pushed to you. Now, I see this much more harmful than even artificial intelligence, because if a journalist in the making is not reading newspapers, which is my experience in the last few months and few years, that journalists themselves have stopped reading newspapers. They are consuming what is being pushed to them. Now, which means you are becoming a slave of technology, which is pushing you information and what you are getting it. It is important to recognize technology. It is important to know what is trending, what will be consumed and what should be consumed. But it is equally important for a journalist to understand the larger big picture, and that cannot be acquired unless you do some basic structured reading. And that reading for a journalist should start with reading newspapers, whether online or offline. I'll just end with one famous story, which I'm told is a real story, about two famous French writers. At that time, Flaubert, who was a great symbolist novelist, was an authority, and Maupassant was a small child. But he expressed his desire to his mother secretly that he wants to be a writer. So Flaubert was accosted by this lady with a wry smile and saying that, hey, this little boy, in French of course, he wants to be a writer. Please do something for him. So Flaubert did not pay much attention. What he did was, the book that was lying next to him, he said that, little boy, go and memorize this book and come back. So the little boy took that book, went home. After about 1 year, he came back and said, "Sir, you had told me to memorize the book. I memorized it." So Flaubert looked at it, and that book was actually the French dictionary. So Maupassant had memorized the French dictionary, and Flaubert realized, oh God, what a great quality of a writer. And then he sat with him, and his first lesson to Maupassant was, look out of the window, what do you see? So Maupassant looked at a tree. So he says, I see a tree. So he told Maupassant, sorry, you don't see a tree. You see a tree and sky behind it. The sky is blue. And do you notice a bird in that tree? All that is necessary for a writer to know before he starts writing about the tree. Now, this is I would say my lesson as a journalist, that a journalist cannot just write about PwC by just knowing about PwC. He has to understand the universe. And I think in today's world, that understanding, that deep requirement of being a good journalist, being a good content creator, requires you to know the larger world. You may not use that information which you learn, but it is necessary for your understanding. And I think that is very important. And that is a very important attribute, which I find increasingly missing in younger journalists.
Thank you very much for sharing this. I mean, this is, I'm sure, it'll be very
I'm
inspiring.
sorry I'm being too long, but
No, I think this will be very inspiring for people to hear that. Amit, you want to add on?
Well, I have a very different take on talent. I get enthused by talent. The talent that is coming through the door is absolutely mind-blowing. They're young, they're passionate. The only thing lacking is perhaps the ability to take pressure, because that's a real proof of your character. You know, that's when the rubber hits the road, so to say. But when you see that youngsters, the energy, the passion that they have, they already know a lot more about you because they are digital natives. We now communicate in a digital ecosystem. So we embrace what they bring to the table. Hopefully, just like we did over the years, as technology has changed, we have evolved. We continue to do that. I think the pace has evolved a lot more. I think digitization, or overall integrated communication that we call, has given huge fillip to public relations as a career, to get youngsters coming from fancy, really fancy universities from around the world and wanting to start off as a strategic communicator. I never thought I'll see that, and I'm seeing that, and I'm like, wow. So I'm a big believer, and I believe this will continue. The role of a communicator will only become more important.
Bigger and more important,
and
I agree.
Irrespective of what, as long as you're an authentic storyteller, I think you will carve your niche. You will build a career. And I would just round up by saying that only thing is, please don't run away at the first instance of pressure. Ability to soak in pressure should never be individual. That's where a team comes in, and that's why organizations are important. And I just feel that some of the younger colleagues that we are seeing are cracking under pressure a lot more, and then they give up because they have the comfort of their families or whatever they have, which is great. I think signs have changed. We never had that option. We had to lump it all. Not good, but I think it also stands you in good time, because your ability to take pressure is a skill, or it's I don't know what to call it. It is a fabric, some part of your character that has to be developed at some stage, because you will face challenges in life, work, personal or otherwise, at some stage. So don't run away. Stay, fight. We're all in this together. And when beautiful stories happen that make a difference, it just makes you feel that much more better.
I just add to the pressure bit that I think when you have pressures or you have situations, isn't that when the actual learning happens?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Also, the true character comes out.
Exactly.
So, but I think essentially, when you get exposed to it, you can, do you want to stand the ground, go through the grind and be better for it? Or do you say, this is not my cup of tea? So I'm just saying, my only suggestion to a lot of my younger colleagues and a lot of youngsters who are entering the profession, in the larger communications. I mean, I'm taking the liberty of
Sure.
just enlarging, not just from a PR lenses. Life will throw challenges.
Yeah.
Let's have the stomach to deal with it, right? In the right way. And the best way to deal with it is you're never alone.
Yeah.
Right? I think I've seen people crumble, especially on the back of COVID, by getting overwhelmed because they think everything is on them. It's not. As long as you're a part of a good team that has each other's back,
Totally.
I think we are in a good place.
Couldn't agree more on that one. Thank you so much for both of you for sharing your thoughts so candidly. I think this is really a very interesting discussion. I'm sure these nuggets of wisdom from none other than one of the most respectable names in journalism in the country and one of the most reputed PR leaders in India will be a good guide for comms colleagues on how to build stronger bonds with media personnel, on how to collaborate better. I guess when both work well together, cheer each other on, we can forge not only mutually beneficial professional relationships, but also beautiful friendships over the course of time, like I have had the privilege of having with both of you. Thank you once again.